Just over a year ago, before joining Adapt TV, I had some grilling interviews with Teg. That's the same talk from Teg from Tech Talks. And once he became comfortable with my fit for the role, he brought in the CFO of the company at the time, Tim Morse, to sell me on the idea of joining Adapt TV. And Tim came in and he made a pretty simple and straightforward argument. He said that Adapt TV was going to be hugely successful because it was riding two huge waves. The first wave was online video advertising, which had been experiencing immense growth. The second wave was programmatic technology that was very successful on the display side and was also becoming a force in video advertising. And sure enough, just over a year later, I think we can see that a lot of companies that were established in that intersection of video advertising and programmatic had become quite successful. Clearly, Adapt TV, acquired by AOL last year. And LiveRail picked up by Facebook. TubeMogul went public recently. Even the Spot Exchange just had a big news item today. So if you look at this picture and you consider the last 7 or 8 years, you might arrive at the conclusion that this market segment is now mature, that we've seen everything that can happen in this space. But in fact, I believe that we've just been nibbling around the edges. I think there's a huge opportunity just ahead of us, and that is the opportunity to take programmatic technology and bring it to premium online video advertising. Now, in order to give you a sense of the size of this opportunity, I brought in this very sophisticated tool for data visualization. Here it is. So if this unidentified animal on the right-hand side, I'm not sure what that is that a dog? I don't know. If that represents the non-premium video space that we've been focusing on as a programmatic sector, then that elephant on the left would be the premium online video segment. So it's much bigger. That's the point. But I wanted to make a bigger point today. I think that finding a way to take programmatic technology and make it relevant for premium online video advertising is extremely important, not only for this company, but for the industry as a whole. And I don't believe that we've figured it out yet. I think we've been playing with it, but I don't think that we've come up with a model that is really going to work for premium video advertising. And I wanted to look at that model and understand the motivations of the players in this space and try to figure out if we can come up with a new idea around some of the makings of a successful model. But before I go into the details, I wanted to make sure that we understand what we're talking about. So I want to explain specifically those two terms, programmatic video advertising and, premium video advertising and programmatic marketing. Premium video advertising is typically those 30-second spots that are streamed alongside premium content, like in this case, this is a T-Mobile ad on the full episode player for people watching the Jimmy Kimmel Live show on the ABC site. So this big opportunity, that elephant, is not the kind of video advertising that we know from internet companies or ad networks. It's actually that TV-like experience that is presented by companies like ABC, CBS, NBC, etc., these traditional TV networks. That's what we're talking about here. Now, what is programmatic marketing? This concept was introduced several years ago by companies like Right Media on the display side of the business. And at first, it was the concept was pretty basic. It was around connecting multiple buyers with multiple sellers on top of a platform or a technology rather than through a service like the traditional ad network model. And the benefit was the aggregation of a large amount of inventory, creating liquidity for buyers. But by doing that, they also revolutionized something else. They introduced this concept of automation to online advertising that was not there before. The way online advertising was done, or the only way it was done, was through these very lengthy, labor-intensive processes with large Excel files and RFPs and IOs, and very cumbersome and ineffective. Now, that is still happening, don't get me wrong, but with programmatic technology, there was an alternative. But programmatic marketing really picked up only after the third tenet was introduced, and that was the idea of bringing real smarts to the way transactions were executed through impression-level decisioning. And you're more familiar with this through the idea of real-time bidding. Impression comes in, You look at it, you place a certain value on it, you can adjust your bids accordingly, and you essentially optimize your campaigns. That's the third tenet of programmatic marketing as we know it. Now, let's pause here for a second and try to think, how do these aspects of programmatic marketing fit into the premium online video advertising world? And let's start with the first one, introducing buyers and sellers. Well, it turns out that in the video space, in the premium video space, there's actually a pretty small number of companies that do the buying and the selling. All these billions and billions of dollars are actually traded by just a few companies, and within them, not such a large number of people. And these people, they know each other well. They work together. They meet each other every year in the TV upfronts. They negotiate, they haggle, they strike deals, and they party. And this is a picture from one of those TV upfront parties. And you can see that we're bringing over the TV stars, and they hang out, and they take their photo op with you, and you put it on Facebook. And the buyers, these are the faces you don't know, that these are the media buyers. They're all proud of themselves. And this is how deals get made. So they don't really need us to help them introduce buyers and sellers. So I'm going to strike this thing out as a tool to bring programmatic technology to premium video advertising. Now, what about automation? Well, as I said, these people like working together. They actually appreciate the human aspect of the negotiation and how it happens. So they're not necessarily eager to replace that with automation. But even if you believe that there is value in automation, and I do, I don't believe that automation in and of itself is going to be sufficient to really disrupt the status quo. And I've monitored this for several years on the display side of the business. And I've seen so many companies that came in and tried to revolutionize the operational aspects of advertising, and we tried to automate RFPs and IOs and whatnot. And I can't think of one company that was able to become financially successful with a substantial exit, or that has been able to really shape the industry in a significant way. So I don't think that automation as a standalone value is going to make a big difference for premium advertising. So I'm going to strike that out too. Now let's look at the real-time bidding. When you consider real-time bidding in the space of premium video advertising, you're going to run into a wall very quickly. The publishers are in a situation where they are able to sell out all their inventory. They are oversubscribed. They sell their inventory in the upfront, and they are able to get a premium for it, and they will just simply not entertain the idea of placing their premium inventory, high-priced assets, in a public exchange or even a private marketplace where buyers can bid on it whichever way they like. So we're going to have to strike that out too. So we just now eliminated the three tenets of programmatic marketing as we know it. So what does that mean? Does that mean that programmatic has no impact on premium video advertising? I mean, that maybe we can end this tech talk and I can go on. Well, before we jump to conclusions, let's take a step back and look at the way programmatic marketing is defined in the source of truth of all things, Wikipedia. So I'm going to read this out loud. Programmatic marketing campaigns are automatically triggered by any type of event and deployed according to a set of rules applied by software and algorithms. Did you get it? I'm honestly not sure what that means, but I'm pretty sure what it doesn't mean. It doesn't say that it's about introducing buyers and sellers. It doesn't say it's about operational efficiency in the form of automation. And it doesn't call out real-time bidding as the end of all things programmatic. What it does look like, it kind of reminds me of that idea of bringing smart transactions through impression-level decisioning, right? An event happening, triggering things, and there's algorithms at play, but it doesn't necessarily have to be based on real-time bidding. So I think maybe there's some value here. Maybe something about that model, the intelligence of those transactions that can lend itself to premium video advertising, but not necessarily tied to real-time bidding. But instead of just trying to come up with it out of thin air, and I think we can maybe take a different approach. So far, we've been looking at programmatic technology, essentially a solution. And we took a solution where we went looking for a problem. Let's try to do it the other way around. Let's look at the main players in this field, the buyers and the sellers, and let's try to see what do they care about. And let's start with buyers. If you're a smart marketer, let's say T-Mobile, you're going to do something pretty basic. You're going to monitor the people that come to your store or call your 800 number and end up not buying your product. And you're going to try to keep track of them and somehow communicate to them, reach out to them, offer them a great deal, and turn them into customers. So you can see all these people now have phones in their hands. And that's great. Remarketing or retargeting, everybody knows it's great. It's awesome. It has one big problem, though, a scale problem, right? There's only so many people that actually went to your store or called your 800 number. So you're going to exhaust this tactic very quickly. So again, if you're a smart marketer, you're going to try to do something beyond that. You're going to look at the people that actually become your customers, and you're going to try to get to know them the best you can. You're going to save their information in your CRM system, and you're going to work with data experts like companies like Axiom that can come in, and they have hundreds and hundreds of attributes that they can come in and lay over your records of your customers, and then you can start working through it, and you can try to start find commonalities, common attributes among the people that are your customers, some clues that are going to tell you what kind of attributes indicate interest in your product. And through that process, you're going to figure out additional groups of people, segments of your audiences that are likely to be interested in your product because they have some kind of a similarity to your customers along some lines. And then you're going to try to do the same. You're going to try to communicate to them, make them a good offer, and then turn them into your customers. And that is first-party data as well. And that's a more sophisticated modeling, referred to often as a lookalike modeling or predictive modeling, etc. Now, this concept of first-party data, it wasn't introduced recently. It wasn't invented for online marketing. It's been done for decades. And this is the reason that everyone in this room gets a bucket load of direct mail in their snail mail box every week. The reason is it works. Now, if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Alec Baldwin. I don't know if you've seen this classic movie, Glengarry Glen Rose. There's a great piece there where he motivates the sellers to always be closing. But the whole movie revolves around these tickets over there. These are the new leads. Everything is around the new leads. What are those leads? These are cards with details of people or households that in some shape or form expressed interest in some kind of a real estate deal. And these sellers, they're so eager to put their hands on those new leads. And once they get them, they go up and they show up in those houses, they call up those people, and they don't let them go until they convert them, until they sell them some land. And that's how it works there. So in this case, these sellers went out and found their audiences in their home. But if you ask yourself, how do you find those audiences once you've identified them? What are your options? So in the offline world, you can do what Alec Baldwin does and go to their home or call them up or send them mail if you can. And you can also go to more mass media options like out-of-home advertising, radio, or TV marketing. And there's an interesting dynamic in offline. As you go down this list, there's a trade-off that you have to accept between precision and scale. Precision being your ability to actually target those audiences that you have identified as valuable to you, and scale meaning that you can do that with a lot of people. And as you go down this list, as you can see when you get to TV or radio marketing, yes, you can do some local targeting there, but by and large, you're going to just broadcast broadly. You can't actually expect to only hit those people that you know are interesting for you. Let's compare that to online marketing. So in online, you can't just send Alec Baldwin to show up in somebody's door. You have to find people where they are. And they are out there watching or consuming content on the web or on mobile devices. And you can find them there. You need to buy placements from publishers and present your advertising to them. But there's an interesting difference, because in the online space, you don't necessarily have to live with that trade-off between precision and scale. And in fact, this is part of the reason that programmatic marketing has been so successful. Because as a marketer, you can bring your data and you can put it smack in the middle of that transaction and you can make it golden. And why is it golden? Because those impressions come in, you can look at the people behind those impressions, and you can figure out Are they part of those segments that I have identified as being interesting and valuable to me? And if so, I can set the bid and go get them in the most cost-effective way. And I can do it in scale, precision and scale. And that's great. But now let's go back to premium online video advertising. So we already figured out that introducing buyers and sellers is not going to be the issue. So we're going to eliminate all those people and just leave one buyer and one seller. Now we also know that RTB is not going to be allowed in this case. So we're going to take away the dollar sign. So I can't adjust the bids impression by impression. But now that we've considered what marketers really care about, which is to find their audiences with precision and scale, when we can see that we have a model here that might be able to work. We have a programmatic transaction where the impression comes in. You can figure out if it's within the segment that you care about and include that in your buy. Only it has to happen maybe under some different circumstances. It might need to happen under a previously negotiated and guaranteed deal where the price is set already. And that's a model that possibly can work for premium video advertising. But before we celebrate and announce victory, let's hold off for a second. And remember that we just looked at the buyer's interest so far, right? We haven't talked about publishers. So let's go and look at what publishers care about now. Publishers on a very basic level are trying to create quality content that people want to watch, and they want to monetize that content as best they can. Now they make money in different ways. We're going to focus on the advertising side of this. Now, something that they do, over the years, these TV networks have become really, really good at creating and curating content and creating a portfolio of audiences that are valuable to marketers. So it's no accident if you look at this random collection of Fox shows. It's not random that these shows are appealing to a broad set of audiences. It's not the same people, on average, that are interested in the Mindy Project as the ones watching 24 or Major League Baseball, right? And so essentially those publishers come up with that portfolio of audiences and package them up with the right day parts and create offerings that are really attractive for marketers. In a way, when I think about these TV networks and what they've done, it reminds me of this idea of a perfectly planted field. If you're the farmer that owns these flower fields in this case, you want to try to understand the demand for flowers before you plant, right? Because you need to know how many lilies versus how many tulips or how many roses to plant. So when the time comes, you'll be able to sell all of them, but there will be demand for them. It's the same way for TV publishers. They want to create the right content and create the right audiences that marketers are going to be interested in buying. The other thing that is parallel in this metaphor is the idea of yield optimization. If you're the farmer, you planted all these crops, you want to be able to sell as much of it as possible. So you're going to try to sell it in big bulks to big buyers and make sure that you waste as little of it as possible. And it's the same for publishers. They want to try to sell the inventory in a way that they can predict their demand so they can optimize as much as they can. And they are able to do that. In fact, publishers, the TV networks, they believe that they live in this world. It's a pretty good deal that they have going on. They are able to, they've developed these sophisticated ways to create their content in a way that is attractive to buyers. And they're able to sell their inventory. They sell out in bulks, in those upfront negotiations. And things are pretty sweet. Now, we come in with this model. And the marketer is essentially telling the publisher, listen, I want to go and I'm going to buy audiences that now I define. Only I know what they mean. So now you don't have an idea of how to understand my demand. I will come and I will define my demand in a way that is not clear to you. And that means that they don't know how to manage their content, how to develop it in order to make it valuable. Now, if you're this farmer, you would be crazy to let people, your customers, come into your field and just walk around it and just pluck flowers wherever they want. Like, I'm going to take a little batch here, a little batch there. We're going to leave your field with lots of patches that are just not attractive, that you can't sell from now on. So when publishers look at that model that we introduced, this picture comes to mind. You know, they think that we're going to be moving from this beautiful world to this situation. And they are not crazy about that idea. So, but at the same time, rather than just saying no, they are intelligent. They understand that things have been evolving, and marketers now have a good technology that allows them to do this thing, and they are under pressure to go down that path. And they understand that they're going to have to get there at some point. But to make this very straightforward argument, basically saying, well, listen, Mr. Marketer, if it's so valuable for you to go and target these precise audiences, when you should be willing to pay a premium for them, right? It's pretty sensible. We know a lot of cases where highly targeted media gets a higher premium. So it comes down to price. But it's actually not that straightforward. And this is actually where things tend to get stuck and get deadlocked. Because the marketers look at this and they say, well, you know, online video, even already in its current price, is already overpriced because it's much more expensive than TV. And they're just, the fact is that they're just not able or willing to pay a premium for this kind of inventory without understanding how it creates value. And as I said, this is often where things break down. But if you think about it, the core of the problem here is that no one, not the buyer, not the seller, really understands the value of this media. We don't understand what value it actually creates in terms of sales for the marketer. So this is where we can maybe do a little trick, a tweak to the model, and introduce something new. We can introduce a multi-touch attribution solution and put it right there in the middle. And it's going to do two things. It's going to monitor all the marketing transactions that are going on and keep that information. And it's also going to monitor all the purchasing activity that is going on. So these people that are going into that T-Mobile store, they're going to track that as well. And we're going to look at the revenue that is generated for that marketer. And using these advanced algorithms, we're going to essentially figure out the value that they can attribute to each of these marketing tactics, which means that they can tell the marketer what is the actual revenue that can be attributed to this particular type of media. And by that, they make it sensible for the marketer to pay a premium. It's justifiable. And that makes a publisher want to play along. And that's what balances this whole model. OK, so far? So this is where we arrive at, right? We found a way to define a programmatic model that deals with all these complexities. But again, before we jump off and announce victory, let's again stop for a second and ask ourselves, how do the different parties think of this technology? So marketers love multi-touch attribution. There's no reason they shouldn't. It helps them optimize their campaigns. But publishers, how do they feel about it? And I want to tell you this story. And just about 2 months ago, we had a product advisory summit up in Napa. And we invited about a handful of buyers and a handful of sellers of premium online video advertising, the stuff we're talking about here. This is actually how I became interested in this and ended up being on this stage. And we were spending the day talking about all these different models and what makes programmatic interesting or not interesting to them, what are they interested in, what are their concerns, etc. And as we were getting towards the end of the day, in that last discussion, things started to become really heated. And at some point, one of the senior publisher representatives in that room almost yelled, "What if it doesn't work?" And everybody fell silent. And what he meant was to say, well, now you're taking something that works perfectly. Now when you're introducing this new technology that's actually going to tell you if it generates value or not. And what if it doesn't? What if this whole multi-billion-dollar market is working without understanding the actual impact? What if we find out that it's actually not doing much? This whole multi-billion-dollar market is going to crumble like a house of cards. That was a very genuine window into the human emotions that are at play in this market. And you can never separate technology from people, right? You can't just develop products that make sense on paper. You need to come up with solutions that can be adopted by human beings. And so that was his gut reaction. But at the same time, the other people in the room, and him, him too, admitted very shortly after that we can't just reject technologies because they work, right? We have to understand, and we have enough examples that good technology that gives you more information and helps you become more effective, it's going to win. So publishers understand that as well. And they're willing to play along, but they're saying something very reasonable in my mind. They're saying, well, if you want me to move away from that perfect field and risk ending up with that patchy field, you're going to have to play along with me a little bit, and you're going to have to give me access to some of that information. I'd like to understand how you define those audiences and what they mean. I want to understand at least some insights about your attribution technology and what have you learned about what in my inventory creates value for you, so I can plan accordingly and I can forecast my inventory and I can find a way to make my business work around these new circumstances. And this is where we left off that discussion. We identified a model that seemed to make sense to everyone, and let's just review it quickly. In terms of ideal participants, unlike the traditional programmatic model, which is can be public or have multiple buyers and sellers, here we're talking about just a transaction between a buyer and a seller. In terms of a transaction model, we will not be talking about real-time bidding. This would be a pre-negotiated, guaranteed deal, essentially setting a price ahead of time. You can use advanced targeting, and that's the core of the value here, with those first-party data segments or advanced targeting in other forms. And the pricing is going to have to be sufficiently attractive to make this worthwhile for the publisher. And for that to be possible, you need to support it with a solid attribution solution that can tell you the value of that media. And around all of that, I would add that you have to take a certain attitude that is respectful of the different parties and their concerns and their interests and structure it in a way that can work. Now, this is one model that we came up with. And we're actually experimenting with this model right now. We are in a pilot with, together with Freewheel, and we have several customers engaging with this pilot, including T-Mobile, which was featured in this presentation, through their agency OptiMedia. We also have Walmart through their agency Sarco Media Vest. And on the publisher side, we have ABC and some other publishers. And they're engaging with each other through this model. And we're just getting started, but I saw the first ad that was transacted this way yesterday. And we'll see how it goes. And it's just a first step, but it seems like a first step in the right direction. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only model. I think we should continue to experiment. And if we want, as an industry, to unlock that huge pocket of gold, that huge opportunity, we need to continue and experiment, but not come in with a preconceived notion of what programmatic needs to be and try to force the market in that direction. We need to come and really try to understand the motivations of buyers, the concerns of sellers, and come up with technology that really creates value within those boundaries, within those circumstances.